Ancient Rome is often regarded as one of the most advanced civilizations of its time. However, life during that period was not without its darker moments. One of the most horrifying aspects of Roman life was the practice of feeding people to wild beasts. An event so terrifying it became known as Damnatio ad Bestias, condemnation to the beasts. Slaves, foreigners, Christians, and political prisoners were at the bottom of the social hierarchy. Imagine yourself in the sandals of Aulus Lamia, a former slave who won his freedom by becoming an informer. During the reign of Augustus, he served as the imperial treasurer and amassed a fortune estimated to be around $700 million in today's currency. She was the daughter of the emperor's brother, and her mother was Julia the Emperor, who were essentially the kings of Rome, wielded absolute power. The most famous venue for these gruesome events was the Colosseum, an oval amphitheater in the heart of Rome. These arenas may have been smaller, but they still served as effective spaces for carrying out public executions. The timing of these spectacles was also carefully considered. They often took place during festivals or celebrations, allowing the Romans to combine entertainment with their religious or civic duties. For instance, during the Ludi Romae, the Roman festival of games, gladiatorial combats and animal hunts were a prominent feature, attracting large crowds to the Circus Maximus. It was a reflection of the values and mindset of the time. While we may condemn such practices today, it's important to understand the historical context that allowed them to flourish. These spectacles were deeply ingrained in Roman culture and played a significant role in their society. By exploring the world of Damnatio, we gain insight into the darker aspects of human nature and the lengths to which power and control can drive people. Built between 70 and 80 AD, under the Flavian dynasty, it was intended to honor the Roman Emperor Vespasian and his dynasty. The Roman audience played a crucial role in perpetuating this cycle of violence. They fought with knives, shields, swords, or simply their bare hands, trying to defend themselves against the onslaught of the animals. Other victims displayed remarkable courage by standing their ground, staring down the ferocious beasts, and refusing to back down. Some people even managed to strike back at the animals, inflicting wounds that momentarily distracted or weakened them. Such acts of defiance, although often futile, offered a glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. And in some rare instances, condemned individuals were able to survive the ordeal. This survival, however, was often a matter of luck rather than skill, as it depended on the behavior of the animals and the mercy of the crowd. The Romans were known for their love of spectacles, and these executions were the ultimate form of entertainment for them. It was a way for them to release pent-up energy and aggression in a controlled environment. They cheered and jeered, fueling the frenzy of the event. But it wasn't just about bloodlust. These spectacles were also a reminder of Rome's power. Seeing other human beings torn apart by wild beasts was a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the ruthlessness of the world they inhabited. The amphitheater could hold up to 80,000 spectators, who eagerly gathered to witness these horrifying displays. These events weren't just spontaneous outbursts of violence. They were carefully orchestrated spectacles designed to both entertain and intimidate. The selection of animals used in these executions was deliberate. Lions, with their sheer power and ferocity, were a crowd favorite. These magnificent beasts were symbols of untamed strength, capable of instilling both awe and terror in the hearts of spectators. Their thunderous roars echoed through the Colosseum, amplifying the drama of the unfolding events. Another popular choice was the tiger, known for its agility, sharp claws, and striped coat. These big cats were seen as more elegant and refined predators, adding a touch of sophistication to the brutality. The Romans also employed more exotic creatures, including elephants captured during their wars in Africa and Asia. These massive mammals, with their tusks and size, presented a different kind of spectacle, showcasing Rome's dominance over even the largest of animals. They could have any person put to death just because they didn't like something they said, making jokes, or even being related to someone the emperor didn't favor. For example, the Emperor Caligula infamously executed his own grandmother, Julia Maesa, and adopted mother, Julia Livia, without any hesitation. But the emperors weren't the only ones who could send someone to their death. The Roman Senate, which was supposed to be a beacon of justice, was also capable of meting out harsh punishments. Its members often used their influence to eliminate rivals or silence those who opposed them. Furthermore, the Roman law system was more of an instrument of control than a means of dispensing justice. While it did provide some protections, it also allowed for extreme punishments, including the dreaded damnatio. The rationale behind this barbaric practice was rooted in the concept of dehumanization. By stripping condemned individuals of their humanity and subjecting them to the whims of ferocious animals, the Romans sought to emphasize the absolute power the emperors and senate held over their subjects. It was a stark reminder that anyone could be reduced to nothing more than prey at the mercy of the powerful. However, her parents' noble status didn't protect her from the whims of the powerful. At just 21 years old, Agrippina found herself caught in the crossfire of political turmoil. Her own grandmother, Livia Drusilla, played a pivotal role in having her exiled from Rome on charges of plotting against her uncle Tiberius. As Agrippina prepared for her banishment, She pleaded for mercy from her father, who had regained favor with the emperor, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. Tiberius's wife and son were also against her, labeling her a disgrace to the family. On the day of her departure, Agrippina faced humiliation, as her belongings were confiscated, including a bronze statue worth 80,000 sequins. What happened next is a chilling testament to the brutality of the times. Agrippina was handed over to a military centurion with orders to throw her into a wild beast pit, along with her 3 children. The sight that awaited them was nothing short of a nightmare. Lions, leopards, bears, elephants, poisonous snakes and all manner of vicious creatures were loose in the arena, ready to tear their victims to pieces. Agrippina and her children joined a group of 8 other exiles in this pit of doom. Yet this gruesome scene wasn't the climax of their horror story. The real tragedy unfolded when the spectators entered the arena. First, they unleashed 2 venomous ASPs onto the captives, hoping to end their lives quickly, but the snakes slithered away, unwilling to bite the humans. Instead, the Romans decided to play with their food. The crowd taunted the captives, throwing in nets to capture them while lions paced restlessly, eager for the main event. Finally, after agonizingly prolonged torture, Agrippina and her children were ripped apart by lions. The emperor's wife and son watched this macabre dance with amusement, but Tiberius was reportedly moved to tears by the sight. But his greed didn't go unnoticed. Augustus grew suspicious of Marcus's involvement in fraudulent activities, concerned that Marcus might use his vast wealth to destabilize Rome. Augustus decided to take action. In 27 BC, he accused Marcus of plotting against the state and sentenced him to death, a punishment that would have been swift and brutal, even by Roman standards. The spoiled rich man was crucified. His job was to keep an eye on potential troublemakers in the empire and report them to the authorities. However, his actions were driven by self-preservation rather than loyalty to Rome. He betrayed numerous senators and influential figures, including the popular gladiator, Spartacus. You can imagine the resentment that brewed among the common folk. When Aulus was eventually found guilty of extortion and bribery, the people demanded his punishment. Rather than receiving justice through a fair trial, Aulus met his end. In the cruelest way imaginable, he was stripped naked, shackled, and then thrown into the lion's den at the Roman circus. The lions pounced on him immediately and tore him limb from limb. As if this horrific spectacle wasn't enough, the Romans added insult to injury by serving up the remains of Aulus in the form of a stew to the spectators. Talk about a chilling end to a treacherous life. They had no rights and were subject to the whims of their masters, or, in the case of Christians, the Roman emperor. For instance, Emperor Nero blamed the Christians for the Great Fire of Rome and used them as scapegoats. So when he hosted the festival of the 14th of July in the year 64 AD, he unleashed poisonous snakes into the audience, stands filled with Christians. He watched gleefully as the terrified populace fell victim to venomous bites. Even after their death, Nero ordered their bodies to be burned and the ashes scattered, ensuring that the victims couldn't receive a proper burial. But who exactly met this grim fate? And why did the Romans take such pleasure in watching these spectacles? Let us delve into the heart of ancient Rome, where courage and terror intertwined with the beasts of the arena. Life in the heart of the Roman Empire was not easy, especially if you weren't a Roman citizen. But what about the other condemned souls? Those who fell victim to the infamous Damnatio. Now let's shift our focus to Gaius Cornelius Marcus, a man whose ambition led him to become one of the wealthiest men in Rome. But the most intriguing case of Damnatio ad Bestias belongs to a mysterious woman named Agrippina Minor. But why did these horrible punishments exist? Behind the imposing facade of Rome's grandeur lay a dark underbelly of cruelty and oppression. Now let's talk about the logistics of these public spectacles. While the Colosseum was the most iconic venue for these events, other locations like the Circus Maximus and the Campus Martius also played their part. The spectacle of blood and guts wasn't just about the condemned and the animals. However, not everyone accepted this fate passively. Some condemned individuals chose to fight back against their attackers, using whatever means they had at their disposal. The spectacle of man versus beast in ancient Rome was more than just a display of power.